Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
You can call me stupid. Yes, you can call me cheap. You can say I'm lazy. You can say I'm weak. 'Cause I won't break, no, I know I won't wait. You're in trouble,
Hey, there you go. There you go. Welcome. Ooh-wee. Saturday in the park, in the car, in the house, wherever you're at. We're so glad you're here with us today. Welcome. On behalf of E360 TV and the Trajectory Television Network, I'm Dr. Loren, and I'm so excited to be here today. Over the years, it's been 8 years that I've been here, and I've done probably well over 30, 35, somewhere in that range of these 90-minute specials. The majority have been ones that I've gifted to people. You may remember some from over the years. Started back. Our biggest one is the one with the kids, the 19 kids. The forgotten voices of the corona pandemic. And that one is still burning up the airwaves, as you will, with social media. So we're hoping that this conversation today, you'll share it out, you'll show it out, you'll speak it out, you'll talk it out with anyone and everyone, because there's not a person in the world that does not have some form of trauma somewhere in their history, okay? So that's why we need to talk more about it. Today's panelists, and there are 7 people here today, all are willing to share with you, and hopefully you will share with us. This is an interactive opportunity. So if you're on the platforms where you may speak your mind through leaving comments, by all means do so. We'll get to them and try our best to acknowledge as many as we can, provided the time we have. But today we're here to talk with people that have gone through some traumas that are not of the ordinary nature in a lot of cases, but nonetheless still that surfboard that they have used to ride and surf their way into the beaches of the lives they love and live today. So this is about the antidote, not just the poison, you see. So welcome, and I'm going to bring our panelists in because I'm itching to get started. So let's just pop them in, starting with Craig, Rissa, Chris, Tawana, Solon, Sam, and Jeff. Welcome, panelists. How are you guys?
Good.
Not too bad. How about you?
Good. Glad to have you all here. We're going to do a little something. I'm going to ask each person to please mute and unmute accordingly when it's your turn to speak or whatever. That way it'll make it easy for each person to be heard clearly. across the broadcast. What I'd like to do is give each person, and I'm going to time, instead of reading bios, I'm going to give each of you your own moment in the sun, a verbal bio, if you could. So I'm going to give you each 2 minutes. Please come in and just share who you are, where you're at in the world, your age, and a little bit, just a little bit. I'm going to ring the bell at 2 minutes, like that. Everybody heard that bell? That will let you know your time is up. Try to wrap it there, but give us a little hint of the shade of trauma you're going to share with us today, because we all have multiples, but we're going to focus on the one or two that really stand out to each of us today. Okay, we're going to start with the ladies. Okay, because we have manners. Rissa August, welcome to the show. Your time to shine is now. Go right ahead. The floor is all yours.
So glad to be here, Dr. Loren. Thank you. My name is Rissa. I'm based in Colorado, and I'm a multi-award-winning author, speaker, patient advocate, and Gestalt practitioner. About 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare disease and a tumor at the base of my brain, and it changed the entire trajectory of my life. I was also going through some other challenges, including a divorce from an 18-year marriage and complete life upheaval. And it made me reflect on my entire life up to now. I am in my late 40s, and I found a way to move forward and live the life I truly want to live. Thank you.
Okay. So, Risa, you didn't need all your time. Good on you. Thank you so much for that. Tawana, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Loren. My name is Tawana, and I am 49 years old, getting ready to turn the big 50 on February 14th. I am a very proud mother of 3 beautiful girls and a grandma of a little boy and a little girl. What brought me here today, 2 of my specialties are incest resulting in pregnancy and domestic abuse, both physical and non-physical. And those are the things that brought me to where I am today, and to serve the people that I now serve on their healing journey, through their dark nights of the soul, and through getting through similar situations. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. I don't think I'm going to get to ring the bell. Darn it. Everybody's so good with their timing. All right. Good on you. Thank you, Tawana. I appreciate you. Let's go to our youngster now, our youngest panel member, Mr. Sam Mitchell. Sam, turn it up. It's your turn. Tell everybody where you're at in the world, how old you are, and what you feel your trauma is all about.
All right. Well, what I do is I run a podcast called Autism Rocks and Rolls. It's about autism and how we cope with daily struggles that you may or may not understand. The tragedy, I guess, is really getting diagnosed and overturning these stigmas and all the BS I've had to gone through. But through the podcast, it's grown so much. I've helped sponsors, a board of 8 events, and I do speaking engagements, spoken in Oklahoma and Canada, and many more.
Oh, okay. All right, Sam. Thank you. Everybody's just quick and easy. Now we're going to move on up to who I think. I'm doing this in the order of age. Now I'm trying to figure out between. Jeff, move your hand. Let me see if there are any wrinkles around your. No. Okay. So I think, who's the youngest? Okay. Dolan. You're up.
Yeah, what's quiet, everyone? Maybe we'll see. Well, my name is I'm 33, so I'm 33 years old. My name is Loren Johnson. I simply live out my purpose by spreading love, happiness, and peace, by making people smile from going from hopeless to hope more. Professionally, I'm a eudaimonia strategist. What I do is guide men to gain freedom from their biggest challenges in life, and that's pretty much what I want to hit on and talk about today. Is the relationship trauma aspect, something that I don't think a lot of men kind of speak up about, or that they see within themselves, probably because they just don't know, just like I didn't know at that point in my life. So definitely just want to share my story and give strategies on how I gain freedom from my relationship trauma, because we all can get better in life.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Jeff, Thalin, you said you were 33? Did I get it right,
Yes, sir.
Jeff? How old are you?
33. Yep.
Okay. How old are you, Jeff?
I'm 40.
Woo! I got it right. Okay. Jeff, you're next. Talk about what you're here about today, where you're at in the world, and we'll get started.
My name's Jeff. I'm 40. I live in Chicago on the south side, 79th and Marquette right now. And I've just really been through a lot in my life. I'm a vet. I had kind of a traumatic childhood. And like, I own a company now. I do TikTok, all this stuff. But what I'm going to probably be addressing the most today is just people pleasing, because that's been my biggest thing in my adult life, is people pleasing. And we need to start to understand it. And especially from men, we need to understand it. It's not okay to be a people pleaser. We have to be selfish as humans, because we cannot pour into other people and help other people if we can't even help ourselves get to a stable spot. And I'm going to go into a little bit more about my current living situation, all that. But that's what I'm about. I'm about just helping people understand you have to be selfish and start being that person that says, I've got to take care of me first before anyone else.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you. Let's move on up to, I got the same situation. Look, I'm going to go with Chris. Sorry, Craig. I'm not trying to say I'm last because I know I'm the oldest. So, Chris, go ahead, man. Tell everybody what you're doing while you're here and what brought you here today.
All right. My name is Chris Shivers. I am a 51-year-old father of 5. We are a blended family. We joke that we have 4 of 5 on the LGBTQ rainbow. So I have 1 trans son, 1 bi daughter, 1 lesbian daughter, and then 1 non-binary daughter. And so it's given me a unique perspective. My trauma, which I assume like most, I definitely have different points where trauma happened during my life, but probably the most profound and the one that impacted me the most was my brother committing suicide. When we were kids, I was 11 and he was 16. It was obviously life-changing. Suicide touched me again several years later in my early 20s, when my father-in-law at the time also committed suicide after coming out as gay. It definitely impacted me in how I viewed it. I think like most, I was in the military as well. I was in the Marine Corps. And after getting out, I kind of followed this track of life that I thought I was supposed to be on, get a good job, get married, have kids, and do all these things. And I realized when I got to the end of that I didn't have, and I own my own business here and my wife and I run it together, but I realized I hadn't found joy, and that's what I was looking for. And then I started to realize I really didn't have any emotion at all. And so it started me on this healing journey. At one point I weighed 400 pounds. And so that was the first step, was to get my physical body in decent shape. And then from there, it moved in to dealing with my trauma, which took me to the Amazon and to Peru to sit with grandmother ayahuasca, and then also to the mountains of Cusco, where we sat with grandfather San Pedro.
Wow.
And so over the last 4 years, I've been doing a lot of plant medicine to heal my trauma. And what I realized is that for me to really feel joy, I have to be my authentic self. So when I returned to Peru, I came out as openly bi, pan. And so fortunately, my wife has given me the space to address that and to kind of figure all of that out while supporting me the whole time. And so my goal is to be an example of a normal guy that could be openly queer and still married to a hetero presenting relationship. And so, yeah, that's me.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And finally, Mr. Craig, I'm glad you're last, because you're the one that makes everybody jealous about where you live. But your story, nonetheless, is quite incredible. go ahead and pour into everybody if you could. Your turn. You're up.
My name is Craig Sikovsky. I'm 58 years old. I live in Merida, Yucatan, Mexico. My story, I was a 9/11 responder to the World Trade Center, and I was only there for 2 days, and I ended up getting lung cancer, where they removed my mid and lower lobe, my right lung. And since then, I've developed a bunch of health issues, and I'm speaking about the healthcare system that 9/11 responders are in. And, you know, I'm one of tens of thousands that are sick and dying. And politicians really don't care unless it's, you know, September 9th, 10th, or 11th. And then they abandoned us at September 12th. So I'm here to just wake people up and help people just get over their emotional traumas to past circumstances and events. Yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
Oh, very good. Very good. Now, hold on 1 second, y'all. We were trying to show something, and it's kind of, I'm going to get it. There it is. I'm going to get it because we want to go there. It should pop up here in a second. But while we're waiting for that, hold on. Let me get you back off the screen. There we go. We're going to watch a little bit of something that speaks to how your trauma is your superpower. And after reading the bios and meeting with each of you individually, as a matter of fact, one of you here actually coaches with me, Mr. Chris. And so I know a lot about one of you, but I know a lot about your stories because when you gave them to me, they instantly started reverberating through my space, and I knew you. We looked at a lot of people, by the way, everyone, to get the perfect blend of stories here today. So look forward to hearing from all of you again as we move through this 90 minutes. But let's kick things off just to hear what the world is thinking about the possibility. Is it even possible that trauma could be your superpower? Just going to watch just a little bit of this TEDx talk. A very powerful TEDx talk, millions and millions of views, nearly 7 million views. Let's take a look.
We're all traumatized. When people think of trauma, they often think in terms of abuse, violence, and war. You here in Sarajevo have know too well about. But in fact, trauma happens to us all. And the first trauma is being born. The physical experience for the baby to go through the womb is traumatizing. Think of it. You might have your navel cord around your neck. You might not be able to breathe, or the first breath you take in life, you have something in your throat. So what the baby experiences is fear of death. And that gets programmed into you. And then these traumas keep happening to you, especially the most important ones are the ones in the beginning, between the ages of 0 and 6, the so-called developmental traumas, where you as a baby, you're trying to learn about life through connecting with your parents. For instance, you might be lying in your bed screaming for them to come and nurse you, and your parents might be away or not hear anything, or they might have read a book that says, you know, let the baby scream him or herself.
Okay, now that's the piece we wanted, the piece about how early trauma really begins. People think that trauma is in many cases just, you know, an event. But for a baby who, you know, you've seen them, they think it's the end of the world. They can't breathe. Their faces are all torn up and red. And they're just, I've seen them like, what's wrong? You know, it's a traumatic experience. A lot of people, myself, my story, just basically, not basic because there's nothing basic about it, retraction. But trauma for me actually started before I even came out of the womb because two women were deciding what was going to happen with me. And the plan went south, but I still ended up missing, you know, therefore 22 mothers in a lifetime. But again, we're here today to talk about the antidotes primarily, how we have made it through to help those people. And right now it looks like we have almost 500 people watching. We're at 4.5. No, let me see. And that's just from the places we can see. So I bet you we have even probably double of that watching. So that tells us that this is a pretty hot topic for folks. because every one of us has a scar somewhere on our body, which means most likely we have a scar somewhere within our spirit. And we're going to talk about that healing today. So I want to ask you, you heard there in the little clip, 0 to 6 years old is where most trauma enters into the lives. And I believe that is the moment we're all marked for greatness. By a show of hands, how many of you can trace some form of trauma coming into your journey between 0 and 6, like they said in the clip? How many? 0 and 6. All but one, all but two. Looks like Craig and Thalin don't remember. Thalin, what age do you remember trauma coming into your life?
That's actually a great question. I never really thought about it, so I don't really have an age.
Okay. Well, we may have just opened up a can of worms there. That's a great, I know a lot of people are going, huh? How do you not know that? Did that pass through anybody's mind? Like surprise that Thalin didn't have a date or an age? No, not a surprise. Sam, you're saying yes. Everybody else is saying no. I'm with Sam. I'm surprised. I rarely run into somebody who doesn't have some type of childhood trauma that they remember. Well, maybe it was, but it was after the age 6. That is pretty early, but I remember back to 3. And it's just different for all of us. Very interesting. Craig, what age do you remember some trauma?
I remember going to funerals when I was a kid. I mean, that traumatized us pretty much. But it was definitely when I was going through something that little kids shouldn't have to go through. And that was like 11, 12 years old. And my childhood was amazing, man. I grew up next to a park. And all we did was like play cowboys and Indians and like make weapons and just be a kid. So, I mean, I was able to alchemize things that happened to me based off of not having trauma from 0 to 6.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question. Raise your hand if you are comfortable. We're not forcing anything out of anyone. You're here to speak on what you're comfortable to speak on. I've hopefully have convinced everybody that that's the way it should go today. So don't feel like you're being bullied or pushed. But I'm going to ask by a show of hands, if you have ever experienced physical trauma, means it could have been an accident. It could have been a fight. It could have been anything, but any kind of physical trauma, physical abuse. Raise your hand. That's everybody. Okay. Mental abuse, mental trauma. Yeah, I'm right. Emotional. That's different. That's for everybody. And then finally, the big S, sexual trauma. All but 3. Or 4. Hands again, sexual trauma. Okay, yeah, I thought so. Okay. And I have a feeling that some of those sexual traumas may have had nothing to do with physical sex. And so start thinking on that if that's something any of you would like, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in there. And that's what I love about this conversation. So let's start here. Here's another question. And then that's easy by a show of hands. Then we're going to get into the going around the room. Suicide attempts in your journey. If you've ever had at least one, put your hand up. Keep them up until you don't qualify. One suicide attempt. 2, 3, 4. I guess I'll hold the record. 6. All right. Okay, nothing I'm proud of, but wow. So you see again, so many similarities. Whoa, we just hit 1,000. Okay, let's go. I want to ask a part. Let's go right into the healing, but then tie it in to the poison, kind of like the juncture, if you could. I got to a point where and then I decided to, or this came into my life, or I heard about this process or this therapy or whatever, where it kind of started to switch. Where did you begin to come out of that and move into what is today? I'm going to start that question with you, Chris.
All right. I'd be happy to share.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead. Take a minute. And
okay.
everybody keep your answers to a minute. We want everybody to get this. Come on. Okay, Chris, you're up.
All right. So I think for me, it was really realizing that I thought looking at it on paper, I had everything in my life that should have made me happy or joyful. You know, I ran my own business. I worked together with my partner every day. It was amazing. I had great kids that loved me, but I didn't feel happy. And so I really started digging down on that. And that's what took me to the jungle and to ayahuasca to heal that trauma. And then it took another 9 months of integration and therapy to really dig down to what the kind of the even bigger part of the trauma was that was repressed from childhood, that I couldn't even process. And so once I began doing that work and started really working through those feelings and realizing that a lot of things I feel now are triggers from my childhood and they're not the same situation, they just remind me emotionally of that situation in the moment. I was really able to kind of work through all those things and to get to where I am now, which is just trying to be the most authentic version of myself that I could possibly be, because I'm many different things. And my therapist says I'm basically the culmination of my eras. And I believe that's true. I am all things that I've been and all things that I am. So.
Thank you. Awesome. So we went to the jungle and then also therapy. Again, another question for a raising of hands. How many of us here have at some point gone and sought out therapy of some sort? How many? All but Jeff. All but Jeff. Okay. Okay, interesting. Okay, we're gonna jump over to Sam. Sam, when you started taking your power from the trauma and doing something positive with it, how did that happen for you?
Well, it happened because I just got over it. I got over the bully, the exclusions, and the stereotypes. I was just really out of point of anger and so much vengeance. I had to do something to shift the mindset. So I thought, what if I share these stories that you had to be there for it to make sense, or you had to be there for it to understand? That's when I decided to start the podcast. And I took my power because I was just sick of being the outsider with the hoodie on.
Ooh, Sam. And then you see how he dropped the mic, but going right to closing his, he muted himself and that's that. Right. Okay, Sam, I feel you, man. Thank you. Sam is on it. Okay, now let's go to Tawana. Tawana, what about you? Tell us a little bit about the shift from that to this.
The shift for me was my final suicide attempt on March 19th, 2022, after a toxic relationship. And I knew I had to do something different. I knew I had to be something different. I lost everything and everyone I loved in my life, children included. They did not want to be a part of my life. But this time I had to find a spark that was inside of me, something to love. And I realized that there is so much of me to love. And so I went through that crushing dark night of the soul, and I have made it out on the other side. And now I have clients who I am helping to, illuminate their path from darkness to light. I have stepped into my power as a psychic, and I've dropped all of the masks that I used to wear. I burned them, and now I am my full authentic self at all times.
Loving that. Okay, man, this question is really bringing the strength out in each friend when they sit in and that's that. Right. Love it. Empowerment all day long. Oh, okay. We're going to pop up to Craig. Craig, tell us about your how do you turn your situation with lung cancer and all that into something positive for yourself and others?
So I was always being diagnosed for something, and at the end of the diagnosis, they were wrong. And I remember studying epigenetics with Joe Dispenza for a while, and I was getting an annual physical. And I remember the doctor coming out, and she was like, "Hey, have you ever had a bad X-ray?" And when you have cancer and you have bad tests and stuff, you kind of have this squirrely feeling in your chest. It's like they call it scanxiety. It's like every time you're going for a report, there's an opportunity that they're going to give you the wrong thing that you want to hear. So she had asked me, have I ever had a bad X-ray? And I remember instinctively saying, whatever she tells me after this is not going to ruin my day. I'm going to walk out of here with a smile. And as soon as I said that, I had this punch in my chest. And I realized that I had turned my life into a heart and brain coherent activity. And when I finally realized that she didn't even have the reports, she had saw the X-ray and she saw where the part of my lung was missing. She thought it was cancer. And from that point on, I've just made it to where anybody says anything to me, it's not going to ruin my day. And that's what I live by. And that's what I help people do, is overcoming their thinking.
Okay, great. Thalin said it wrong. Sorry, excuse me. Thalin, you're up. Same question.
Yes, sir. My shift came back in 2017. Things were going great for me in life. I was married. I had a lot of friends. My career was on track. I was living out my lifelong dream of being in the military. And then 1 year later, my life got knocked off course. I had to get out the military. I was going through a nasty divorce. I found out I had multiple disabilities, and I was on like 17 different meds. I had no real friends, and I lost focus on life. I was pretty much drowning in my biggest challenge in life. So one day I realized, I had to repurpose my life, because I was just laying on the couch with an empty Wild Turkey honey bottle. And I was just so disgusted with myself, because I knew this wasn't me. So I had to find my way out of this situation and find my way back to myself to be even better than I've ever been. And that's when I started to work on myself and started looking at self-growth. And I found out that really the problem wasn't everybody else or the situation I was going through, but it was me. So I had to make me better. And then once I started finding my way through Know Be Love, right, knowing yourself, being yourself, and loving yourself, when I was able to then go on to do what I do now, helping others to see that sometimes we think we're being buried, but we're being planted.
Got to ring the bell on that one. We think we're being, I'm stealing it. I'm just letting you know. See you in court. We think we're being buried, and we're really just being, I'm going to make you unmute.
Planted.
Man, okay. Love it. Thank you for that. Risa.
Well, for me, after a lifetime of not feeling heard, by family, growing up in a dysfunctional household, and through life, and then it took 8 years to find the tumor in my skull and diagnose my disease, and not feeling heard by doctors, and following brain surgery, and sitting on the couch in these tattered gray sweatpants. They were very sad looking. I felt like I lived in them for about 2 years. I got tired of hearing what I should do, what other people thought I should do. And they weren't hearing me and what I wanted to do. And that was the shift for me, sitting on that couch, on that sofa, in those horrible gray sweatpants. And I said, you know what? I want to live, and I want to live on my terms. And at that point, I stopped focusing on what I can't do or what I could no longer do. And I started asking myself, well, what can I do? And that's when I decided I was going to ride my bike from Canada to Mexico, and I was going to tell everyone to take all their shoulds. And well, you know,
Yeah,
you know what they can do with their shoulds.
yeah. Even where the sun don't shine. I'll say it. There you go. Right. Perfect. So enough is enough. There you go. Making that difference by changing things and making them different. Jeff.
Yes.
Same question.
Can you repeat the question?
Wait, you fall asleep?
No, I was listening to everyone.
I want to know about when you. Well, I'll really lead you up to the front door. You said in your preamble earlier, you said, I got to the point where I decided I'm not going to be a people pleaser anymore. So what made that happen? You just woke up and looked down in your cereal bowl one day and you saw a message that said, stop being a people pleaser. How did it happen?
It just really kind of happened very gradually that I didn't even really notice it, because I never had boundaries. I never set boundaries in relationships, especially with women. I would never set boundaries with people. And that goes all the way back to really middle school for me, is I was always trying to please and get acceptance because I was very different than the kids in my hometown. I was not from my hometown. My parents came from Chicago originally, and they just moved to the country. And I just noticed that it got worse and worse. And then it's like when I started setting boundaries, I started seeing people go and being my authentic self. It's like, and then when people started falling off, I didn't feel bad that they left. It's like, okay, that's a relief. And that's really kind of when I started doing it, and just kept going and going and going. And now it's like my circle is very small. As I'm gonna be one of those people, I'll be honest, I don't have close friends. I really don't. I have friends and then I have associates. Because I'm not willing to sacrifice me and my well-being materially, spiritually, anyway, to please other people. It's not my job. I have no responsibility to anyone else in this world but me.
How long has it been, Jeff, since you've how long has it been since you've come to this epiphany?
It's probably it's been probably over the course of the last 4 years, when I was homeless in Arizona with all the money I got, which we talked about on your show.
Yeah.
And just how I burned through it and how I made bad decisions with it. It wasn't drugs or alcohol. It was just, I basically was a people pleaser.
But this epiphany, did it come after your pockets were empty?
Yeah, it came after my pockets were empty.
I already know. You were on the show the other day, so I know the answers to the questions I'm throwing at you. But I remember how I had to pull them out of you like teeth the other day. Yep. So that's why Jeff's not on the thing. He was a last-minute entry into this, because I wanted him here today to really put him in the hot seat around you warriors. Seriously. And this is going to be where we're going. Here's why. How many of us here, when you did cross over into the world of relief, where it started to make sense and it all started to come together, and you said, okay, I can do this, and I can make it stick? Because oftentimes it ends up falling away, or we go back to something. We break our covenants with ourselves, which are the worst things we could ever do. So I want to go. Thank you, Jeff, for that. And I'm not picking on you, but I am, I already warned. I told you when you're coming up in here, this is good stuff. Trust me. And so, we've got one here who is like Jeff is still in the honeymoon phase comparatively to a lot of people here, as far as getting it all the way in. So let's go here. How did you, panelists, untalk yourself? A lot of the things, oftentimes when we go back or drop off or give up or think we're giving up, it's a lot of the time it's because, there's outside influences, but when it really hurts is when we speak it. When we're the ones saying it. I can't. That's it. I'm worthless. I'm going to just do the world a favor. That's how it was with me. Sound familiar to anyone here? I see your heads nodding from place to place. Absolutely. So let's talk about this. Just like when people are in recovery for alcoholism and this and the other. Many of us here, anybody here ever dealt with any kind of addiction? Okay. Wow, Risa, you almost didn't want to raise your hand, Risa, did you?
No, I think I somehow talked myself out of it. Yeah, I had exercise addiction, and then I had some eating disorders, which could be considered an addiction as well. But things I don't. Yeah, I think I still struggle with admitting.
Yes, and so that can be said to all of us in one shade or another, I'm sure, if we're perfectly honest with ourselves. Jeff, did you just raise your hand for the addiction part or no?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't remember you mentioning it. I'm setting him up, y'all. I don't remember you mentioning addiction on the show the other day. What could you be speaking of? Pray tell.
Food.
Oh. So here we go. So, and I know someone very close to me with that same issue, and that is powerful because food will make you do. Chris, that's right. 400-pound Chris. Remember, Chris, talk to Jeff about that. So, because those can be triggers. So, how did you get from underneath that addiction, Chris? And how do you stay from underneath it?
I had to really, I think like most people, specifically, I know more guys military, just so I'll say that. But I think it's the one thing I could control was my food consumption. And so because the Marine Corps had basically turned off my emotions, they don't want a guy that when he gets mad, he's going to tear up because he's got so much emotion in me. So they turned all that off. And so the only way that I could feel discomfort was to overeat. So I overate to the point that I was physically full. And that was the only way that I could feel discomfort. I say this not as a brag or any ego involved, but I went 20 years and cried 3 times. I mean, I had no emotion at all. And it was really understanding that with my background, I'm either all in or all out. So like Rissa said, when I lost my weight, I lost 200 pounds in probably 8 months, give or take, no surgery, strictly changed my diet, started working out. But then I swung the pendulum the completely other direction. And then I was doing CrossFit twice a day, and I was training for a marathon, and I would eat well through the week, and then I'd have a cheat day, and then I would just eat from the time I woke up till 11:59 at night and make myself miserable. And I just decided I had to change it. Like I knew that I couldn't be happy unless my body was happy. And I think it's interesting of how many former military we see that we know PT'd every day that are overweight. I mean, it's the vast majority. And I think there's some kind of tie-in there with the emotional aspect and being able to control that eating when we're not allowed to control so many other aspects of our lives.
Great points. We're coming up on our first break. So everybody, you can run and get something to drink. You can share the broadcast out. You can run to the restroom, whatever you need. You're going to have 2 minutes and we're going to come on back. Lots more of the show ahead of us. But before we go, I want to, first of all, just by a show of hand, because I'm trying to do some dot connecting here. How many, this is based on things that have come out from one of the panelists somewhere along the road so far. How many of you would consider yourselves now or once upon a time having been a people pleaser? All but one. How many here feel that they have legitimately been into what could clinically be considered a narcissistic relationship? All but 2. Okay. How many here have had trauma due to some form of a medical diagnosis at some point of your life? all but one. And then what is this? Oh, this one. This is a good one. Ooh, 1111. We just had 1111 on the screen for view. I'm into angel numbers, y'all. Oh, sorry. Hi, angels. Last one before we go to break. Generational. I hate to say curses, but that's how they say it out there. Generational curses. But, you know, generational trauma. Things that, you know, oh, I come from a line of alcoholics. My grandpa, my dad, my sister, all that. Any of that. Any generational crap spill over into anybody's lives here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, now that one was interesting. So that was something to everybody to think about. The hands kind of came up slowly. I think some people were making some connections there that may have been for the very first time. There you go. This is what happens, people, when we have illuminated conversation with each other and leave room for us to just be ourselves. That's it. It's the power of we, not the power of me. Listen, we're going to come back in just 2 minutes. Just 2 short minutes, and we want you to come back to get your questions out there too. We're going to try to get to them in just a moment, but we'll be right back. More show ahead. Don't you dare go away. Share the broadcast out. All right, welcome back to today's installment of this 90-minute special entitled Turning Tragedy, or is it trauma, or is trauma tragedy? Some people think they're one and the same, but today we're talking about trauma that does not have to turn out to be a tragedy. It turns into triumph, and we have 6 people here, 7 including me, who are ready to continue the conversation. First of all, thank you to corporatebusinessclass.com, one of our sponsors today, as well as apparel line Triple Nickel, which you can find at Kohl's stores all over the country. Thank you all for supporting us today. Bringing back the panelists, starting with Craig, Risa. I said Risa. Risa, Chris, Tawana, Loren, Sam, and finally Jeff, all back. Okay. And thank you all for hanging out. Over 1,000 of you are here right now. And so we know we're on the right track with this conversation. Interestingly enough, before we went to break, I asked about the generational curse piece, or what do you guys call it? Anybody? Because I hate curse. I don't like constructive criticism. I prefer constructive insight. And I don't like playing devil's advocate. I hate that term. Some phrases just don't sit right with me. And this one, generational curses, is another one. I think it gives it a power it does not own, if that makes any sense. So everybody ended up raising their hand. Sam, you start. What made you raise your hand as far as that generational or ancestral piece?
Well, I was a bit iffy on it because I'm not for sure if you want to count this. Maybe you can, depending on how you see it. But there's a lot of alcoholism in my family, and it's really run down the rain. I mean, there's a lot of people on my grandfather's side of the family with alcoholism. And so I know the sickness of drug and alcohol abuse very well.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely. I agree with you, Sam. Thank you, man. Jeff, I saw you. We're going to go through everybody because everybody's hand came up. What's that look like for you, that piece?
For me, I don't know if it goes back beyond my father, but for me, it was always growing up. We were always poor. Everything was tied into the farm. Everything was always about that. We never got to have stuff as kids. Me and my sister, like, I never got nice clothes for school. None of that. And that put very much a poverty mindset in my head. So I don't know if it's, but I know I got to put this thing, I got to shoot it in the head and put an end to it with me. Like, it's not going to go on. And like you were saying, curse. How about trauma? Because that's the title of the show, turning trauma into triumph.
Generational trauma.
Yeah,
I like it.
Because a curse is spoken. Trauma is something that gets passed down.
Yeah, I agree. And just for a reference point, for those of you who didn't see Jeff on my show, I think it was just last week, wasn't it?
It was this week.
This week, just passed. Yeah, right. And so go back and find it. It's there. And Jeff was talking about how he had inherited $250,000 a couple years ago, and now is having to live in basically one of the worst hit areas of the city, and getting his rent and everything paid for by an outside source, and basically found himself penniless. After all of that, so when you hear him speak to these things about scarcity mindset, know that it is a real thing and it is powerful. It is powerful. But sometimes we go through those kinds of things with dollars and cents because they're always we wasted it and blew it on things we could touch instead of investing it, like our time and our resources, our other resources, into things we can feel. Now, see, those are the things that have a way of sticking around. That's why none of us has ever seen, as far as I know, a U-Haul right behind, connected to, or attached with a hearse. Because nobody can take it with you. You cannot, right? I don't know about you, panelists, or you out there, but I certainly don't want to leave this world and at the last second find out that I brought everything I could touch and didn't bring one damn thing that I could feel or I could leave that people would feel. It would make them feel. And that's why this conversation today, we're feeling our way through this conversation. So based on that, let's go up to Tawana. Tawana, same question.
Generational alcoholism, smoking, domestic abuse, SA trauma, and sexual abuse.
Oh, okay. See, I okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the gentle way to put it. And then the same as Jeff. The poor, not having anything, not living anywhere nice. Just that scarcity mindset. So all of those things are traumas that my family passed on.
Has passed on. And okay. And then everybody start thinking about those of you who haven't answered the generational piece. But then when we come back, we're going to go backwards. And I want you to touch on the antidote. So, because a lot of you here have broken some form or all of the generational pieces, and so we want to talk about that. Thalin, you're up. Generational.
For me, same alcoholism and definitely broken families. So unhealthy, I would say, marriages or relationships.
Okay, so you witnessed a lot of the same things you started living.
Yeah.
Relationship
and
relationship.
And it's very interesting because most of my life was focused on not being that, right? But at some point, you still ended up being it for some reason. And that's probably what I would say the antidote is what for me I had to see was, because I kept focusing on what I didn't want to be, I still ended up being that, because all my focus went to what I didn't want to be. But then when I started to shift my focus on what I wanted to be, then it completely shifted, and I started to become better at relationships. And
there you
break these
go.
curses. Yeah.
That was powerful. I saw everybody's heads moving in agreement that when they change the narrative, the way we speak to ourselves, we are casting, Bruce Lee, he said that words cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. And it's true. It's true. We speak it into existence. I am a firm believer in that. And so let's make sure we don't miss that. People, talk to people about how you changed the narrative in your journey. How did you do it? What did you start saying to yourself? For me, I can tell you right there. I remember the day when my mantra literally changed. I woke up at 50 in the middle of that, at 50 they tell you to go get that colonoscopy. And I woke up in the middle of it and was looking at the screen. And when I realized, hey, that's the inside of my body, I started thinking I could have seen anything. What is that? Wake up and they're talking about who's going to tell him. Oh boy, I hope he gets his affairs in order. And I was like, I could have woke up to that. But I woke up to a clean bill of health, but I woke up. Because that was the day I started saying, instead of poor me, oh, what did I do to deserve this? From that day to this day, I now say every day, what must I do to preserve this? Because I just am glad to be here. I'm just happy to be here. And to be here making a difference, easing suffering somehow in the world each and every day, just like all of you people. So give yourselves a round of applause. That's the way that should go. Let me see. Risa, do you remember?
Yeah. Well, going back to, it's incredible how I hear everyone talking and, alcoholism, abuse and scarcity mindset. I can relate to all of that. And I also grew up with someone like controlling me, and also having this doom and gloom, very negative mindset. And so poor us, there's always a black cloud over our family. Life is hard, basically. And I remember saying, you know what? That's your black cloud. I'm not a part of that. I don't stand under that same black cloud you do. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I get a choice here. No one else gets to tell me how I should feel or I'm supposed to feel. And I remember kind of making that conscious decision, like, no, that's your cloud. I'm going to take the guys over here.
Yeah. So, okay. So we're almost 100% still out on Mr. Craig. Craig, what are the generational pieces from your side of the table?
From my side of the table, it was illness and money. My mother was sick for like 16 years while I was growing up. So there was never a lot of money. There was always arguments about health. There was always some kind of, why us, the Sikowsky cloud, like the whole nine. I refused after, digging in and understanding that my illness wasn't my fault. And instead of, having that victim mentality, why not just be like, hey, you know what? Let me just as I'm waking up, be like, hey, I'm glad I woke up instead of why did I wake up? What's planted that in my head? That was it, man. Party just begun.
Okay, awesome. So we want to pivot here. We're at the 1 hour. We got 30 minutes left. And don't worry, everybody. If you're wondering what happened to Thalin, he's taking care of something. He'll be back in just a second. But the next question is, panelists, and just raise your hands. We'll just go by who. Oh, Chris. Wait, Chris, I don't think I did the generational thing with you.
No, you missed me.
Okay. See, they told me. I heard them say, before you move on, what about Chris? So, Chris, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
Generational?
Oh yeah, definitely. And we call it trauma too. We call it generational trauma. And I'm really looking forward to speaking to the antidote. But I mean, it's the same as most. It's alcoholism. I remember from a very young age, like my dad telling me like, hey, you need to be really careful. We have a history of dependency in our family. But I think the one that I saw play out, and I never had an issue with that, from alcoholism, but I think the thing that was more profound was the broken marriages that somebody else mentioned. And yeah, my grandfather had been married like 5 times, and my parents were divorced. And with that came watching how they co-parented us. And so I'm on my 3rd marriage, and I never had an example of what 2 people really should look like in love and how they should really treat each other and what kind of relationship they should have. And then if that marriage fails, how they should treat each other post marriage and how they should work together for their kids. And so I think that was one that passed on. And then also, you know, we have a history of mental illness in our family on both my mom and my dad's side, of legitimate like hospitalization, suicide attempts, things of that nature. That fortunately, I'll speak to that in the antidote. But yeah, that's when we look back at it, those are the kind of the big 3.
The big 3. Thank you, Chris. And sorry again, I didn't mean to skip over you. But then I realized I was skipping over myself too. I keep forgetting I'm in here with you. I'm so used to being the host only. But I will say this, interesting enough for me, because you know I wasn't raised with my biological family. But interestingly enough, when I did find them at the age of 32, first thing my birth mother said, she saw me, and it's apropos that I'm speaking about this today, because today is my 1-year anniversary from quitting smoking, which I had smoked cigarettes off and on, very little off, since I was 17. It just haunted me. It stalked me. And last year on this day, I was in the presence of Sanjeev Chopra, Deepak Chopra's brother. He's not one of my best friends today, but we had just met that day. And I was just standing there, just in the essence, the champagne bubbles of when you know you're in the presence of greatness, right? And I just looked over and I said, you know what? I am done. I am done with this. Threw it all in the trash can. That was 1 year ago today. So, but I said all that to say this. My mother saw, because she smoked, and she saw me. I was like, oh, you smoke. So I pulled mine out. She goes, you smoke cigarettes too? And I said, yeah. She goes, your sister Sandra and you are the only 2 I smoked with when I was pregnant. And you're the only 2 out of all 5 of your siblings that smoke. Oh my God, did I do this to you? So that was my generational thing. And then my brother, Charles, who passed away, had the same thing with the relationships, all those marriages and kids with different women and stuff, which is exactly what it was with our biological father. The reason she left him and ran away where we ended up when I was born in Michigan was because he had 3 wives. He was an over-the-road truck driver and had been married in 3 different states. So generational. Passes down. It passes down. Let's get to the antidotes. Ding, 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 ding. That is what was transformed into what is. All of us here today are here because we are sharing our stories, our vulnerability, our what was with people so that there can be a new what is for them as well. So now we're going to switch over from all of that ooh boo boo talk into asking you all to please share a little bit about what it is you are, who it is you are today, and what it is you do with all of this trauma benefit. And I was like, can I even say it like that? Yes. We're going to start with reason. What is it? What is it that you wouldn't trade for the world? Because trauma got you here, and you couldn't have gotten here any other way. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh. My tumor, which I named Bubba, and started adding humor to my life. But I truly see Bubba as a gift. It forced me to really reflect on my life and who I was as a person, and really asking myself those important questions of like, well, wait a minute, what do I believe? And what am I going to choose moving forward? And so I can't say that I would want to go back. You know, I still live with my trauma. I still battle my disease. My future's uncertain. But man, it drives me to really choose the life I want to live with intention. And so I don't think I would go back to who I was. I wasn't the greatest person back then. I love me way more now than I did before.
Mute it. Sorry. I'm going to let you guys raise your hands. Who wants to go next on that one? Sam, you're up. Then we'll go with Chris.
Well, I'm going to have to head out early. Unfortunately, I got a concert to go to.
Okay.
But to answer your question before I do, it was great meeting all of you guys. Seem like phenomenal people. But what I've been doing is I create events, for example, to celebrate a population, in my view, that doesn't get celebrated often. A lot of times those on the spectrum get ignored. Well, that's when I come in. And then I'm trying to celebrate differences, trauma, tragedy, and how it could turn this trash into a rainbow, because that rainbow leads you to a pot of gold. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Sam, thank you, man. I can't wait till you're on my show. You're coming up soon, aren't you?
I think so. Just send me
Yes.
the
Yeah, I know you are. You're booked. I can't wait. I love you, man. Have a great time at the concert.
It's Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper, so if anyone's a fan.
Oh, I'm jealous. Thank you so much, bro. Talk to you soon. Happy Labor Day. That was Sam, you guys. That was Sam. Okay. Who's next? Oh, Chris.
Yeah, I don't want you to forget me this time. So
that's why I came to you next.
I think the interesting thing for me was, as I started to heal and look at all these things, I started really examining like how my brain works and why I think the way I think and why I do the things that I do. And then once I started kind of interpreting those things and drilling down on them, I immediately started seeing, I'm fortunate that my dad is still with us and lives right down the road. So I get to go over there and hang out with him. And we do some therapy in the backyard, usually with a bad smell of a skunk around, if you know what I mean. And so I started realizing that he had some of these same ways that he processed and the way that he thought. And then the beautiful part was then I started talking to my adult daughters and started mentioning these things and how I processed and how I thought of things and things that I did. For instance, I was a scenario guy. So before we'd have an event, if we were going to do family TV night and watch a movie, I would have played out that scenario in my head of us all laying there and them telling me, gee, Dad, you're the best dad ever. And so, but then it would never match. And then I would be immediately disappointed because it didn't match the scenario that I had ran in my head. And so in talking to my kids about that, my oldest one is like, I'm the same way. I do the same thing. And so it's been beautiful that they're able to start the process of figuring out how they think and how they work in their 20s and not having to wait to the last to their late 40s. And I think that's one of the biggest ways. And then talking about like relationships and how we are And not just saying, oh, we have a history of dependency, but like really talking about those situations and talking about how they were, and so that they can then apply that in their lives.
Beautiful, beautiful. Who wants to share next? Okay, Jeffrey.
Hey, Chris, I just want to say that wargaming that we do in our heads, that I think is very much a military thing, because we always know that when you roll out, you always have a backup plan, who, what, where, when. And that's just what we do. I do that myself. But how I've really kind of gotten over this, and I'm still in the infancy of it at 40, but I just started realizing I rode in an Uber with someone as the rider, and they were like 60, and I just realized, and some just kept gnawing at me, goes, do you want to be here at 60, working a job doing Uber, living in subsidized housing? Do you want to be this bum? And I called myself that. I'm like, you have so much knowledge of just abilities to make money, abilities to market stuff, and you're just sitting here pissing in the wind. I'm gonna be blunt. And I'm just like, okay, cool, let's go. I just kind of woke up one day and was like, okay, I've got to change. People have been telling me, oh, you need to change, you need to do this, you need to do that. I had to get out from under certain people, because it felt like I was never meeting what they expected me to meet and change how they wanted me to change. And that was being a people pleaser. Now that I don't have to worry about meeting those expectations, I set my own expectations. I'm starting to enjoy life. And here's the biggest thing. I switched up. I went from being an omnivore to almost being exclusively a carnivore. And I've been doing that for the past week now, like consistently. And I feel so much better. And it's like, once your body starts to feel better, your mind starts to feel better. You start to feel like, man, I don't need caffeine anymore. I don't need any of this. I can just...
That'll be the day. Oops, sorry. I don't know where that came from. Sorry. It was like that was the equivalent of talking about my mama. I'm just saying. Once you start changing your mindset, and it's not going to be overnight. Like I told you on your show, Loren, growth is not linear. Growth is not going like this. Growth personally is all over the board. You go backwards, you go forwards, you go up, you go down. It's a multi-dimensional experience.
Yep, and this is a nugget right here from a salesperson. You never ride the highs too high or the lows too low, because it's all going to equal out. And if you ride the highs too high, you're going to be disappointed when the lows come. And if you stay stuck in the lows, you're never going to see those highs come back up again. You gotta just go with it and not get upset when stuff don't go your way. Stuff doesn't go my way. And here's the thing: we control about 5% of our life. We only control how we respond to stimuli. Everyone here that's had trauma, including me, we had a decision on how we were going to respond to it. And it's an innate decision. It's a fight or flight. In that moment, we decide how we're going to respond to that trauma.
Yeah.
And if we go down a negative path, then we have to go down that path until we can figure out, wait, why the hell am I on this path? And then we have to correct course, but it's not going to be an immediate thing. It's going to take time. For some people like me, it's more changing the mindset, changing the physical, and then the mental seems to fall. But I know other people who change their mental and see where they want to be, and their physical changes. I'm the exact opposite.
So let me ask you something. Be honest. If you were to inherit another $250,000 today, how long do you think you could make it last? Knowing what you know now.
Knowing what I know now, I could make it grow. I wouldn't make it less. I'd make it grow. I'd make it grow, and I would not have to worry about anything for the rest of my life monetarily. That's the bottom line.
So you didn't think this. But wait a minute. You didn't think this same thing right before you got all that money just a little bit ago? You didn't think I can make it grow?
No, I thought I was going to spend it and have a nice life. I didn't think far ahead. I kind of stopped forward thinking. I kind of stopped being a human and just being in the moment. But then to be a human is the ability to forward think and project into the future what is going to happen. You can war game it out enough that if you know, okay, I did this stupid shit in the past, I'm not doing it again because I saw where
Well,
it
a lot
got
of
me.
people say that, but we all know how that goes. But okay, thank you for that. But I will say this too, because on the show with Jeff, we pulled a lot of intel, and that's the same. This is a thing. This is a thing that Jeff went through, that people who win lotteries, millions and millions and millions, end up in the same place, pretty much in the same frame of time that it took him. So it's not the amount of money, it's something else. And so these conversations,
it's your mind.
It's your mindset. It is. It is. Okay.
The 6 inches between your ears determines your success or failure in life.
I
told
that.
you, and this is what JT taught me. You can be born poor and it is not your fault, but you die poor, it is your fault because you have.
And you need to put that on a post-it note and stick it somewhere.
Everyone does.
And I'm not, listen, and I know y'all think, quit picking on him. I ain't picking on him. I'm saying what I do.
You're not.
I have a string full of post-it notes sitting here. People that know this show from years ago used to know, Loren, look, I kept the wall of purpose. And when I pulled it down, I put them in a velvet box. These are the things that I overcame that turned from trauma into triumph. They're on the walls around me as we speak. They manifested. These are still on the way, you see. But when you put things down, we got to do things. Trauma is not that easy. You can't just wash all of it off in one bath. Sometimes, it's like if you got sprayed by a skunk, you need tomato juice or whatever it is they say. You got to bathe in it. You see, water won't cut it. You get watermarks on your coffee table. You can't just put regular pledge on it and get that, or you need something special. Same thing with trauma. The work we've all done, support systems, releasing things that don't belong to us, i.e. generational, the way we talk to each other. And then I really encourage everyone, keep things within reach that serve you. I say all the time, it's like, it's in my satchel because I spoke yesterday, but some of the books that changed my life, that I have all the paper clips and the highlight marks. Whenever something resonates with me, I say to myself, ooh, I better write this down or mark this passage in this book so that when I show up and wake up not this guy, I have placed things there within reach to remind me this too shall pass. Because you know how easy it is. And a lot of people have said, oh yeah, that'll never happen again. And then all of a sudden, I haven't seen so-and-so. Oh, you know what happened to her. Oh, she relapsed. Oh, she went back out there. This and the other. So I don't think it's a good idea to ever get completely comfortable, is what I'm saying. Keep reaching. Keep putting things in place so that you can grow. Tawana, I see you shaking your head. Why don't you go next?
No, I agree. You should never be completely comfortable. Comfortability is what landed me in the space that I'm in now. So, no, I don't want to be comfortable.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Thinking that the people that I loved would always love me. Thinking that the places that I lived, I would always live there. I didn't realize I could fall again, and those people would be like, screw you, lady. We don't care about you. Because I was a people pleaser. I was the biggest people pleaser out there. So the only friends that I had were either friends that were bonded over trauma or friends that could use me for something, right, that I could give. I was great at being a caretaker, but not receiving care. Now, I will admit, my children were great caretakers of me. We talked about it. I was in a horrendous car wreck. I still, at surgeries next month for the next back surgery, 20 years later, I am still going through surgery. But what I love about what you said, Dr. Loren, is keeping things close to you. Because while we were in the back room, I talked about sparkles. My grandbaby gave me sparkles, and you see where sparkles sits.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this that my daughter gave me, and what Sparkles is sitting on is a box of notes from my daughter, who is not in my life right now, wrote to me that said, I love you because, and she folded them all neatly. And when I need a good message, I go in that box even though she's not in my life presently, and I see, I love you because of this. You know, when I need a little bit of oomph, a little bit of encouragement, but I had to get sick of me. I was sick of me before I could heal. I was so sick of me, sick of being a people pleaser, sick of not being myself, sick of doing what everybody else expected me to do. Just so sick and tired of me. And I was just like, no more. I got to a point where I told everyone, no more. This is not my life anymore. I don't care what you want me to be, what you want me to be. And you know, I love my children with all of my heart and soul. I love my grandbabies with all of my heart and soul, but there's got to be respect there. One of my children and I have
boundaries. Boundaries
again.
are important.
Exactly. We have to have boundaries. Both of it, both ways now, not just me.
And with ourselves. And boundaries with ourselves.
Exactly.
See, that's where a lot of people don't put any boundaries in place for themselves. I still am working on that. For real.
So am I. So am I.
You know, thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome. You are welcome.
I want to go up to, I'm sorry. Thank you, Tawana. Craig and Risa, did you speak to this particular point yet? Okay. Craig, who hasn't? Colin, did you? Has anyone not spoken to this except for Craig?
I haven't
Colin.
yet.
Okay, Craig and Colin. Okay.
What I realized was this is the only real estate that we can own. It's called the temple for a reason, and we have to sit in it. And when I realized that every geographical location that I moved to, I ended up showing up with all my luggage and all the insecurities and self-loathing and everything of how I was going to change this place, and usually ended up getting a foot up my ass, right? And this is one of the things that people really need to understand for themselves is, where do you want to live? Do you want to live in self-misery and all of the self-sabotaging behaviors, or do you want to live in a mansion? Clean your head up.
Thank you. Thank you. Colin, what say you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So for me, it was definitely going back to that low point for me when I made that shift of with the wild turkey honey bottle, kind of sitting there drowning in hopelessness, being anchored down in that, feeling depressed and at my lowest point. And when I made that shift was me realizing, because that was a generational curse, as I've talked about alcoholism, realizing that everything I didn't want to be, I was going through second divorce as well. All right. So that was broken marriages and alcoholism, going through that. Cool. And was realizing that now I'm becoming what I didn't want to be. So I had to find my way. And my way is a strategy that I share with people, which helped me, was the No Be Love way. And what that is WAY starts with, who are you? All right. So I asked myself, who are you? And I wrote that down, and that helped me to cultivate skills to like know myself. All right. Then who are you wanting to become? And then that was key for me to then focus on who I really wanted to become, instead of focusing on who I didn't want to become, like we talked about earlier, which was holding me back. And then the beautiful part, and that helped me to now be myself. And then the beautiful part was, what are you going to do to become that person? And that helped cultivate me skills for me to love myself. And as I started to do that, it made me realize I was getting frustrated of always looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. But when I did this, I realized that I am the light. And that's what I hope people do, is to see that you are the light to your tunnel. If you keep chasing the light at the end of the tunnel, what happens every time? Another tunnel comes. Another tunnel comes over and over. So once you see that the power comes when you realize that you are the light to your tunnel. And then that led me to, go on and do therapy, and kind of realize that I had relationship trauma. I didn't know that. That's probably why I wasn't able to answer your question at the beginning, because something I learned through therapy was that I'm a radical acceptance. So I see everything as part of life. Like, I don't really see trauma. I don't see hardships. I see it as that's just part of life. That's just how we live, right? So that's why I can't
Mhm.
really identify, and I have a tough time realizing those things. And that's why therapy helped me to
Therapy.
identify all that. Right.
Awesome. Thank you. Listen, you guys, we have about 5 minutes left. And I just want to say, before we get out of here, and we're going to let everybody have a little Jerry Springer moment, take 30 seconds to leave the audience with something if they were to forget everything they heard here today. And that means the people that are here live and the ones who will watch on the replays. The one thing that you would hope they would take with them. And I'm going to start, and I'm going to say this. You hit it. I used to do a thing. I had a speech about that light at the end of the tunnel thing, Colin. And I remember the day I realized why I wasn't getting anywhere, because the light I was seeking at the end of the tunnel was somebody else's tunnel. That means that tunnel was already dug, you know? And I was like, well, shit, I ain't even dug a tunnel in somebody else's. And so I literally Googled, show me what a miner looks like. And the first thing the universe had me focus on when the picture popped on the screen was that light they had in the middle of their head. They didn't have it in their hand. They had it in the middle of their head, so that wherever they focused, they were the light and the light was them. They were together as one. And so that's how I started digging. So if you see light at the end of a tunnel, there's a trick to it. That means that's somebody else's tunnel. Start digging. Start digging. Because that's how everybody that's here today talking about the antidote got it. They dug themselves. They dug out, they dug over, they dug through. So when people tell you get over it, find a way under it, skirt your way around it, that's wall talk. And I've never heard a wall of opportunity. I've heard of doors and windows. So whatever it is that you need, look into it. And with what you believe to be greater than you, and if you're going to do this, you better find something, because it is with that entity, that spirit of something greater than yourselves, that you will find the courage to use the doorknob and get into it. Because if you're going to get through it, you first got to step into it. And that's what I hope you all get from here today. Okay, 30 seconds. Miss August, give it to them. Lay it down.
Remember that you get to choose which lens you view your circumstances through. So instead of focusing on what you can't do or what's not possible, focus on what you can do, even if it's one small step toward that goal or outcome that you desire. What can you do?
What can you do? There you go. Chris Shivers. Thank you, Risa.
Yeah, I think it's that to have to be fully aligned, mind, body, and spirit. I think you have to heal your trauma. I think once you do that, you're able to reach a true state of authenticity, which usually joy and happiness follow through that. So I would say, we've all talked about therapy. I think therapy is incredibly important, especially for people that have trauma. But really, it's about being your most authentic self. And I think that's what processing my trauma has allowed me to get to. And that's what I want people to take away.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for being here. Craig.
One of the things that, look at this group. The most profound experience I've ever had in my life is one saying this: nobody laughs or cries in a different language. And I just want to thank you for having me here, and I greatly appreciate you.
Oh, I got chills from that. Thank you, Craig. That was, put that in the private chat. I want to make sure I write that down, Craig. Thank you. Tawana.
I first want to tell everybody, love yourself. Learn to love yourself first. You're born alone. Even if you're twin, you die alone, even if you're a twin. And you have to find self-love before you can love anything or anyone else. And don't let anyone tell you anything different. Find that spark inside of you, and light it up and move with it. It'll never lead you wrong.
Perfect. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Jeffrey. 30 seconds.
The biggest thing I want to say, thank you to everyone on here. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for being vulnerable. The one thing I can get, my biggest thing I can tell anyone who watches this, you don't owe anybody anything in this world. You owe yourself. That's what it is to be selfish. You don't owe other people. You owe you. You owe you an explanation for why you're not where you're at, why you're not happy. It is you. It is no one else around you. These people are just outward projections of who you are, of different aspects of you. You don't owe anybody anything. Live your life like this is one of my favorite sayings. IDGAF.
Oh,
It's about what you need and want in your life.
I see you.
It's about being authentically to you. And
Chris.
everyone knows what that means, right? I don't have to say it. I
No, you
will
don't
if
have
I have
to say it because they're scared.
Okay.
I got a school here. Okay.
But that's the thing.
Wrap.
Make yourself proud.
Make yourself
You
proud.
owe you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Dolan, 30 seconds. Wrap us up.
All right. So for me, just like I said in the beginning, just remember that sometimes you think you're being buried, but you're being planted. So everything you're going through in life right now, any challenges you're going through, look at it as a part of growth, that you can grow from that situation. Just like all of us have here, you can go from your trauma to your triumph and just find your way. And if you feel stuck in your challenges, to remember to find your way. List out who are you wanting to become, and what are you going to do to become that person. And you will find your way to continue to know yourself, be yourself, love yourself, so you too can soar above your mountains. Bless.
Thank you so much. Listen, I want to thank all of the panelists, and shout out to Sam Mitchell, who had to leave early for his concert. He's our youngest kid. Go live your life, boy. And I want to say thank you to all of you. You've reached in today and you've poured into thousands of people, and they will then pour into thousands of people, and so on and so forth. Keep going, keep growing, keep showing, and keep knowing that you're doing the right thing by easing suffering somewhere in the world. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Now get out there today and every day. Find just a little piece of your highest self and scoot it right over to where you find yourself standing. Trust, love, joy, faith, all of those things. None of them are things. They're all actually places. Think about that. Take it with you and have a divine weekend. If you're in the United States, it's Labor Day Monday, which means a 4-day weekend. Be safe. Drive responsibly. Drink responsibly. Whatever you do, do it responsibly. Get out there and love up on people. Be kind to yourself and be even kinder to others. I'm Dr. Loren. Thank you so much. And panelists, thank you all for all that you do. I knew I picked the right people. Thank you so much. I look forward to more with all of you. Have a blessed weekend. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day. God bless you all.
You can call me stupid. Yes, you can call me sheep. You can say I